Hello all. Right, this is kind of the second part of the Sunday Q&A, which was we asked the question, what happens if the shipper deliberately tries to overload you? And you guys, as always, have been ever so kind, and ladies, to sort of come back with some very sensible comments and responses. So what I thought I'd do is I've done it as a separate, and that way I'm going to link this video to the shipper overloading videos, which means anybody who watches it, this one naturally follows on and they can glean a bit more information. So without further ado, we're straight into Dixie. Dixie, thank you very much for taking the time. He's kind of given us the Bible version, so I'm just going to read this because it's kind of technical, and hopefully you guys can make sense, like, you know. So he said, plated weights. There are two types of plating: manufacturing plating and ministry plating. Manufacturer's plating. With limited exceptions, all good vehicles must be accepted with a manufacturer's plate, which, along with other details, must display the name of the manufacturer and the maximum axle, gross and train weights at which the vehicle was designed to operate. Ministry plating. The ministry plate or plating certificate is issued by the DVSA to goods vehicles above 3.5 tonne gross weight, which denotes the potential maximum legal weight of the vehicle. In Great Britain, the plate is usually carried in the cab of the heavy goods vehicle or attached to the trailer chassis in the case of heavy trailers. In any case, the maximum weight specified on either the vehicle manufacturer's plate or the ministry plate must not be exceeded. If you're unsure which weights on either of these plates must not be hang on a second. Ministry plate must not be exceeded. If you're unsure which weights on either of these plates must not be exceeded, the vehicle manufacturer or DVSA are likely to be best placed to provide advice. Overloading. The weight limits displayed on either the manufacturer's plate or the ministry plates are determined by the technical specifications of the vehicle and the need to protect the British roads and bridges from excessive wear. Vehicles are permitted to operate at weights above 44 tonnes in exceptional circumstances, such as when moving abnormal, indivisible loads. That's when you see them great big ones on the motorway with, like, you know, vans and stuff. By vehicles authorization of special types, General Order 2003. This is brilliant. A vehicle is overloaded if it exceeds the weight limits displayed on either the manufacturer's or ministry plates. A vehicle could be overloaded on its axles, gross and train weight. Each of these would be separate offensive. For example, a 3-axle articulated vehicle exceeded the plated weights on the first axle, second axle and gross weight would make the vehicle operator and driver liable for 3 separate offences. So what he's saying there is you can be overloaded on your front axle, you can be overloaded on your back axle, or you can be overloaded on the total. And if you're on all 3, you can get done 3 times, I think. But Dixie, thank you very much for taking the time. We're just going to go through some general stuff here, which is kind of like on the subject of overloading, which, like I say, nearly happened to me twice. Once I didn't because they booked a 7.5 tonne, I turned up an 18 tonne, so I was fine. And once because they put it on me, I drove it out and then drove it straight back in. I went, no, I don't think so. So, Van on the Run says, because I said the best thing you do is work out what your weight is for your vehicle, fit it for the diesel, put your pallet truck on and all that kind of stuff, drive it down to the weighbridge, get a weight. Take that weight from your vehicle away from the max. So if you've got a 3.5 tonne van and your van weighs in at 2.5 tonnes, you know you can carry a tonne. That's what you know you can carry. Then you've just got to watch your axle weights. Van Run. Totally agree with getting the vehicle on the weighbridge. With all your gear and tanked up, it's the only way. My van has a payload of 1,460 kilos on paper, but can only carry 1,100 kilos in reality. They'll always tell you they can carry more than they can because they want to sell the vehicle. I do not have more clobber than most, though including a night heater. I just ask whenever I tip or load at the place with a weighbridge. JCB are good for this. Another thing is axle weights. You can be under your maximum gross weight terms, but you can still be overloaded on your axle. Yeah, if you've got a pallet that's a tonne, and you can carry a tonne, but you stick that right up against the bulkhead, that's all on your front axle. So you kind of need to have it midway in the vehicle or closer to the back axle and strapped. Otherwise, you're overweight. Where was we? Over axle. You can be overloading your axle. There is no easy way to know when this is the case. You kind of got to use common sense on that one. If it's just exactly the same thing, yeah. As you said, if you put a ton pallet on the side door of a long wheelbase van, your front axle is overweight, especially if it's a front wheel drive van. Also, watch out for ADR loads at pickup. I challenge anything with a UN number now and have ended up leaving goods behind because they were in fact ADR. Some shippers just take a booking for the size of the van and don't even ask query what the goods are. They are not forthcoming with the details when asked. I really think all couriers and freight forwarders should have some kind of qualification to cover this, something like a CPC. CPC is Certificate Professional Training. I had to do that when I jumped into the lorry. As for ADR, it's a curious one, and guys, you're going to have to help me out on this one, because I believe if you pick up alcohol, and alcohol is over, and it's over like 22% proof or 23% proof, and I don't know if there has to be a certain quantity, that's classed as ADR. And we get alcohol jobs all the time, and they don't say ADR on them. You could be picking up batteries. That can be ADR. Some shippers will class it, some shippers won't. But you'll come. Hopefully, you guys will come back to me in the comments on that, because right now I just want to focus on the overloading thing. Steve at SDC Services. Thanks for shout. He said, personally, if you're unsure, don't move it. You get to know your own van. This is true. You kind of get to know. You look at the springs. Happy springs, smiling springs. That's good. Frowning springs, that's bad. And you kind of, when you pull out, I can tell how much weight I've got on my truck by when I move. And you can go, oh, that's light as a feather, or oh, you got a load on board here. And you know when you're over the top. I mean, when I was overloaded the other day, I got to the first roundabout, went around the roundabout, the wheel scraped. I'm like, no, this is going back. Right, Jeremy Hawk, Pete. I have advice. Over the years, I have run. Oh, right, this is Jeremy Hawk. I just read them. Over the years, I have run overweight hundreds of times, and I've been fined once. My monthly job seekers allowance has been boosted by this crime. P.S. Oh, he said, I'm famous in West Cornwall. They're watching it now. I think what he's saying here is it down to you? And I know my old mate Tony, he would take heavyweights, and as a result of which he would get more money. And I also know on the CPC training, the guy who taught me, he turned round and he said he used to regularly work for a firm like Moving Metal, and he would look at the vehicle and he'd go, I'm over. And then it was a multi-drop. He'd go, yeah, but you're only over to your first drop. The thing you've got to bear in mind, you don't know when you're going to get pulled. You could get pulled as you leave the yard. Worse than that, you could have an accident on your way to your first one, and they're going to throw the book at you. So, guys, you got to do you at the end of the day, but I strongly encourage people not to run over. You know, you might think, oh, I'll be all right, I'll leave longer gaps, I'll be okay. That's fine until something terrible happens. No one thinks something terrible is going to happen, and then it does, and then you go, oh my God, what have I done? So, honestly, it's not worth the dough. There's enough dough out there, don't do it. Philip Eagleton. If you're picking good advice. If you're picking up large stillages full of liquid, treat each litre of liquid as weighing 1 kilogram. Then allow something for the weight of the pallet, the packaging, the drum, etc. On the whole, liquid, a litre of water is a kilo, exactly a kilo. That's kind of how they worked out the system. But not all liquids weigh the same. Some liquids are heavier than others, although I don't know quite how far it is, like, you know. And also you've got to bear in mind, if it's an IBC, one of those plastic things with a metal cage around it, you've got a ton in liquid and you've got the weight of the IBC. They're not that heavy, but there is extra weight on board. I mean, as Jaspan Danagel says, a standard pump truck, 76 kilos. An electric standard pump truck weighs in at 150 kilos. A litre of liquid treated as a kilo. Pallets may vary, 12 kilos to 22 kilos. Plenty of variables. Every load is different. He said, thanks for bringing it up, like, you know. Yeah, and that's an interesting point. You know, you're looking at a pallet. They might go, well, the pallet weighs like, you know, the machine weighs like 1,500 kilos. and then there's a pallet on top. It might only be 22 kilos, but it's 22 kilos. So these are things you've got to factor in. Breath Hale says, he says, unfortunately, plenty of shippers are quite happy to arrange overloaded vans to maximise their profit by using a smaller class of van than the customer specified, especially for a single pallet job. He says, I've turned up for small van jobs where I was booked for 400 kilos. The shipper agreed 600 with the customer, and then the customers put 700 on a pallet of tyres which were touching the wheel arches when stationary. As a reminder, everybody should be checking their maximum gross weight on their V5s, not presuming it's 3.5 tonnes. Most small, midi and some short wheelbases have a gross weight that's less than 3.5 tonnes. This is true. Your van might not carry 3.5 tonnes. It might carry 2 tonnes. It might carry 2.5 tonnes. You need to know this stuff, but you can find out. You can Google it. You can go on it should be on your vehicle document on your V5. If you come and ring the ministry, or you can weigh your own van, but you also know, you might go, oh, my van only weighs like a tonne, so I can carry 2.5 tonne. But that van might only be specified. Well, it's not going to weigh a tonne, is it? It might weigh like 1.5 tonne. Oh, I can carry 2 tonne. No, your van might be a 2.5 tonne van, in which case you can still only carry 1 tonne. You need to find this stuff out. Ignorance is no defence of the law. If something goes wrong or you get stopped and you say, I didn't know, they say, we don't care. You needed to know. Lee Westcott says, it's about time all commercial vehicles came with built-in scales. I know my mate Franz turned around and he said there was something to do with caravans or something like that, and there was a system that you could fit in between the springs that would work out the weights. How accurate it is, I don't know. And Lee, it's a good idea, and it should be. I mean, we're in the 21st century now. There should be a way, and that way, if you overload the vehicle just doesn't start. Although you can guarantee there'll be one time when you're sitting there, they load you up with a pallet of foam, and then it says you're overweight because the sensor doesn't work. But it's in principle, I think it's a very good idea. Jesus Jones, who's going to do a real sort of comment here, contemporary reference to the 18 to 25-year-olds there, says the people who overload you are risking your license. You see, he's right. I got suckered by this years ago working for a large shop. We didn't know this information years ago. To my luck, nothing happened. Today, we now know that you can take the company to an unfair trials court if you refuse to take the load that is not designed for the vehicle and they threaten you with your job. Learn to say no politely. As far as the CX is concerned, if you turn up and you say it's too heavy, it's too heavy. You think it's too heavy, you ring the ship and say, I can't take this, it's too heavy. And then you might have a little bit of a tussle. You go, I tell you what I'm going to do then, I'm going to put it on board and I'm going to drive it down the weighbridge and get a printout. But again, you don't really want it. It's a difficult situation. When I unfortunately, the people I was moving for, I rung them and they said, how many did they put on you? I said 12. How many were they supposed to put on me? He said 5. So it wasn't down to the shipper, it was down to the customer who was chancing it, and it all worked itself out. But you'll see this one when this goes out, and on the video when it goes out. Right, Sean Gill Martin says, another regular thing is going in for a medium wheelbase job with a long wheelbase. The firm will try to put more on you. So you can do that. You can turn around and you can say, if you get booked for 2 pallets and you go in and they go, oh, we've got some space, we'll put 3 pallets. And you go, hold on a second, I'm just going to ring. And then you can ring the shipper and go, right, you booked me for 2 pallets, you booked me for a medium wheelbase, I've quoted you on a medium wheelbase job because although I'm in a long wheelbase, I've quoted you cheaper because I know it's a medium wheelbase job. I will take the 3rd pallet if you agree, but I want more money. Because then suddenly you sent a long wheelbase in for a medium wheelbase job that turned out to be a long wheelbase job. It's about communication and it's about negotiation and it's about being upfront with the system and everybody talking. And if they turn around and say no, say fine, I'll take the 2 pallets I was booked to take then, and they can send another van in for the other bit. Because it gets fuel as well. You've got to bear in mind the heavier you are, the more fuel you're going to use. And in this day and age, fuel's expensive. And finally, Matt Hodges says, it's great when people think, it's great when people think an Arctic can carry 44 tonne on top of the vehicle weight. My unit is around 7.8 tonne and the strengthened body curtain side double deck trailers we pull are well over 9 tonne. That leaves about 26 tonne. Luckily, all I pull right now is deodorant canisters, which weirdly isn't ADR, presumably because they're canisters, they've got nothing in them. But that's a whole different topic. But a full load is pretty light. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I've had that one before where I went in once with my 7.5 tonne And they started to load me, and I'm watching these springs just go down and down and down. I went, how much do these machines weigh? He went, oh, they weigh about a ton each, just under a ton each. They would have put 6 on me. I've gone, no. I said, I can carry, my vehicle weighs 5 tonne. I can carry 2.5 tonne. I can take 2 of them machines, maybe 3 at a push, like, you know. And the lady came out and she said, oh, sorry, I thought it was a 7.5 tonne truck, could take 7.5 tonnes. No, my love, I'm ever so no. I forgive you for your mistake, but it's the total weight. The truck already weighs 5. So they put 2 machines on me and they sent someone in for the rest. So I want to say thank you to everybody for all your comments on the what to do if you get overloaded. Ultimately, if you think you're over, look at it. You can tell by the way the van pulls. If you think you're over, get them to take it off. Take it off. Ring the shipper, say it's too heavy. If they turn around and go, look, it's not too heavy, I tell you what I'm going to do then. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to drive it to the nearest weighbridge, which I'm going to get on Google, and if it turns out to be too heavy, then I'm going to be sitting there charging you waiting time while you get someone in with a Moffat or another van to take it off me and put it on and see what they say. Just don't run, guys. You know, you never know what's going to happen. You could have an accident, you can get done, you can get fined. The fines aren't cheap. And if you get done once, it's a fine. You get done twice, it's a big fine. You get done 3 times, you know. So anyway, like I say, thanks very much. Really appreciate all the comments as usual. And run light, take care, take money.